Hello and welcome to the Health Detective Podcast by Functional Diagnostic Nutrition. We bring you interviews from people who have conquered the trickiest of health challenges using the Functional Diagnostic Nutrition philosophy and similar healing modalities. You're going to hear from experts who have been through the ringer with their health issues and yet managed to come out on the other side. You can always visit us at functionaldiagnosticnutrition.com, but for now, here is today's episode. All right, hello, my friends, and welcome back to another episode of the Health Detective Podcast by Functional Diagnostic Nutrition. My name is Evan Transu, aka Detective Ev, and I will be your host for today's show, episode number 445 of the Health Detective Podcast. And folks, we have finally done it. If you're a regular listener or watcher, I see a few of you on already, so please let me know in the chat if you've normally been watching and this is your first time seeing the new setup, because this is the first podcast we're doing with the new setup. It's not perfected yet. I want to make the colors in the background a little more on brand, because you guys know me. I usually have the hat on. I like wearing a black shirt, and I'm like, this is a little bit gothic for FDN, not quite, but a little bit gothic for FDN. So we'll probably switch up some things here soon, but it's just really cool what we're able to do now. I think it looks a lot better. And there's all these other behind the scenes tech things that you guys can't really see that make my life 1,000 times more enjoyable. So we're glad to have you guys back and here for the first episode in the new studio in the great state of Texas. We're in the city of Austin now. So we're having a lot of fun here and we're enjoying all the gluten-free restaurants. Shelby said she loves the new setup. So Shelby, you must be a regular. So thank you very much. That's good. I'm glad at least Shelby likes it. All right, our guest today, I'm super excited to talk to her because this is a topic that I am very passionate about. We'll be speaking a lot about mental health, anxiety, depression, eating disorders, and then also some other things in her personal health history. But I wanted to start by advertising and just shouting out something we have next week. So you guys won't really see me as much on the podcast next week. I don't think we have any overlapped. I'm at least praying that we don't, because it ends up being a lot of live calls otherwise. But if you don't see us next week, it's because we are doing a 5 and 5 workshop. If you do not know what that is, I have to say this first, because our FDNs always love signing up for our stuff, but you guys can. I just don't want to make you pay for anything that you don't have to pay for. So the 5 and 5 workshop, for those that are interested in the FDN course, this is the best training that we have before you go through the actual course. And what's cool about it is it's only $33. So it's not like we charge you thousands of dollars to do this, but this is basically mini FDN. So why is it called a 5 and 5? Well, we go live over a 5-day period. It's usually about an hour of presentation and then an hour of Q&A at the end. And we run you through a case study. So I don't mean just like different case studies each day. It's actually one case study done over 5 days so that you can fully understand the FDN methodology and the lab tests that we use. So for example, what does day one look like? Well, day one, we have our education director, Elizabeth Gaines, come on, and she will present the case study from the beginning. You'll get to hear the health history, see FDN's intake forms. You'll get to go over the stress and hormones profile results as well. So we actually go over lab test, intake forms, all that stuff on day one. That's obviously fun. I'm not going to get into every single day here, but basically day 2, 3, 4, and 5, you'll hear about our metabolic wellness profile and that client's results, the mucosal barrier assessment and that client's results, GI map, and food sensitivity tests. These are all real test results, and it is a real case study, by the way. It's not just something we made up. So it's kind of cool. This particular client had a health history of Hashimoto's, celiac disease, and many of the symptoms that go with those two conditions. So if you would like to be involved with that, go to the link below. It's fdntraining.com/5labs. That's fdntraining.com/5labs. Again, if you're an FDN trainee or graduate, you're more than welcome to pay for it, but you guys will get this for free once it's done, and you're already going through FDN. So maybe instead of doing this, just go through your course, make sure you're studying that. This is particularly for people who are looking for some additional training, but maybe aren't ready to commit to something bigger like FDN yet. Or I would say this is the ideal person. You're someone that's been looking into the FDN course, but you're not sure if you're ready to invest almost a $10,000 investment and 10 months of your life and a whole new career path, ideally, if that's what you're looking for. You're not sure about that yet. Come to this workshop, because what this workshop will do is one of two things. I can actually guarantee that. You are either going to know 100% afterwards that FDN is for you and it's just not the right time, or you're going to know 100% that FDN was not for you. And then you got some cool training. It was very affordable, and you know that you need to go do something else. I can guarantee one of those two things will be in your mind after you go through that. So fdntraining.com/5labs. Let's get to our guest today. I'm still working on some stuff here with this setup, so I'll actually read this bio off my phone. Once I get really smart and fancy, I'll have this on a teleprompter right in front of me, and you guys will never know if I remembered their entire bio or I'm reading it off the screen, and that's a cool little trick that I'd like to have eventually. So here we go. Cool. Our guest today, Laurie Hammer, as a functional nutritional therapist and Neuro-Nutrient specialist, she focuses on helping clients with brain toxicity, depression, anxiety, eating disorders, and autoimmune conditions. So she's hitting like everything I love working with and talking about. Her journey of overcoming personal health challenges through holistic methods drives her passion. She's dealt with cancer, celiac disease, bulimia, and depression, and now she helps clients from around the world, both virtually and in person. She's here to offer hope and practical insights for moms dealing with anxiety, depression, and the overwhelming demands of life. And she also recently, if I'm not mistaken, had our founder, Reed Davis, on her podcast. So we'll shout that out at the end for sure. But Laurie, thanks for coming on to our show and welcome.
Awesome. Thank you, Evan. I love being here. Very excited.
All right, we always start the show off in the same way, assuming it's relevant to the guest, and it's relevant in 99% of cases. Certainly it is in yours. I'd like to just know, what did your health symptoms personally look like, and when did they begin for you?
Well, I was bulimic from like age 12 to 23. So my health symptoms kind of stemmed all around that. So a lot of anxiety, depression, gut issues, lots of hormone disruption going on during that time for sure. So I just felt like kind of a mess from head to toe, to be honest.
When this was happening, I'm sure you didn't have a holistic viewpoint back then. I could be wrong, but
No, when I sought help for my eating disorder, I was in nursing school, so definitely not a holistic point of view.
So did you even have it in your mind that this was something that maybe could be, and I don't actually know what your opinion is yet, right? That's why we do the interviews. Did you have the mindset that this could even be resolved naturally? Did you think this was something people just get genetically? Like, I guess a better way to word the question is, at the time, how did you view why you had this? Was it from genetics, environment? Like, why did you think that you were
Yeah,
dealing with
I thought it was my emotions, and it was a response to the environment around me, emotionally, family issues, those kind of things. So I viewed it, that's how I chose to deal with life. So instead of being an alcoholic or, smoking marijuana or things, my eating disorder was my addiction. And that's, when things were stressful, I binged and I purged.
Gotcha. Listen, always go in as little depth or as much as you'd like.
Sure.
I want to be sensitive when we're talking about anything mental
Yeah.
health related. But for those that don't know, you even just mentioned the binging and the purging. I actually think, and I'm sure you know this, there's a lot of ignorance around not only mental health, but genuine ignorance around different eating disorders and what they
Oh my
entail.
goodness.
So
Yes.
what's the high level view of bulimia?
So bulimia is when you ingest a lot of food and then you throw it back up, just the basics. So, and it's usually it's in response to a stressful thing going on in your life, or in my case, it was just, I couldn't not do it every single day. It was just part of who I was at the moment.
Is this something that I'm sure you weren't able to analyze it at the exact moment, but I've heard a lot of people. I've interviewed people with eating disorders or disordered eating as well. A lot of them, once they're on a path of healing, will kind of reflect on maybe it gave some sense of relief or some sense of control. Do you have any idea of like what it actually gave you in that moment? Because you wouldn't do it if it didn't give you something, even if it has its consequences, of course, too.
Right. So, I mean, in a twisted kind of way, I thought I had control. And it brought relief. It was just like this huge endorphin, huge dopamine rush whenever I would, binge and purge. But that didn't last long, which is why you keep doing it.
I won't spend too much time on this, but I say this every single time someone comes on and talks about one of these disorders. I don't think we even have a group at all that would assume that these things are not real conditions. But just so you guys know how real these are, when you take something and you look at the stats around anorexia, which is in the exact same category as something like bulimia, that has one of the highest fatality rates of any mental health condition. So for those that are living old school, again, with all due respect to anyone out there that are living old school thinking, oh, this isn't real, or it's an attention-seeking thing or something like that, you're attention-seeking to the point of not being here anymore? I don't think that makes a lot of sense. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I understand what you mean there. And anorexia it breaks my heart to still see people struggling with that, or any disordered eating for that matter. But anorexia it's a challenging eating disorder, mental health condition. Oh my goodness.
How long did it take you to ask for some support with that? Because you said that you did that while you're going through nursing. So how long did it take from when it started to actually getting some support?
About 11 years.
Oh, geez, okay.
Well, I
Yeah.
mean, when I started in college, so my parents found out about my eating disorder in high school, and it was just like, how could you do this to us? They didn't know what to do with it. And so they're just like, just stop. And then they were like, monitoring everything. When I went to college, and then it blew up from there. I mean, when I went to college, I had the freedom to binge and purge whenever I wanted. And I felt like I had control over it. And then I joined an eating disorder support crew because I'm like, this is going to kill me. And but to actually seek help to like go to a clinic, it was almost 11 years because I just didn't fit a lot of the parameters. When you're bulimic, usually you're not underweight. Lots of times you're not overweight. You're just kind of you're in limbo. You really fall through a lot of cracks, to be honest with you.
And what your parents, how they handled that was kind of exactly what I was referring to with that old school mentality, right? And I don't know them. They might be overall amazing people that meant well enough.
Right.
But it's
They just didn't know, Evan. They didn't know what they didn't know.
oh gosh, it sucks to hear this sometimes. But hey, it creates a person that's able to go help others, which I think is amazing. When you did finally accept that, hey, I need some extra support here, was there kind of a final aha moment, or what was the push that led you to do that after 11 years?
Well, because I kept passing out and I was having seizures. So that was it was a problem. And I had quit nursing school because I just couldn't make it to my clinicals. I had quit my job. Like my life was a mess. I had this amazing nursing professor. She was actually my psychiatric professor. And she just kind of took me under her wing. I started cleaning her house. Sometimes I would spend the weekends at her house just because she was just trying to help me through it. And then she came home one day and found me just passed out in her living room as I was trying to clean for her. And she's like, we have to get you into a treatment center. And so she worked diligently, and it just didn't happen. I just didn't fit the parameters of what they, of what they needed for you to be in the programs.
What was the first thing then that initially moved you in the right direction? Because it sounds like there was a lot of
a lot of challenges there. So I moved away thinking that would fix everything. Of course, it doesn't fix everything. But as I moved away, this same nursing professor, her name was Penny, she sent me an article on a GNC from GNC magazine that her husband randomly got. And it was an article written by Julia Ross. You and I were chatting about that beforehand. And it was all on food addiction and amino acid therapy, and that you're addicted to what you're allergic to. And she, briefly talked about amino acids in there. And she's like, you need to call this place now. So I called out to Recovery Systems. And this was back in 1995. So it's been a long time. This is when they were still kind of new. And so I called out to Recovery Systems, and they're like, yeah, come out. And so that was my first dive into what was not labeled as functional nutrition back then, or functional diagnostic anything. So that was my first dive into all of this. I found out I had celiac disease. So everything I was binging and purging on, I was sensitive to. Yeast overgrowth, thyroid issues, adrenal issues. I mean, they did the whole gamut of testing.
I was fascinated by when the celiac thing and all that kind of came into this. So it was because that you're focusing on this holistic approach that those people were aware of those types of things. And as you're kind of starting this path of healing, you're also discovering all this stuff at the same time through that place.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Okay. I'm not trying to make myself seem overly young here, but it was crazy when you said that you went in 1995. That was the year I was born.
Now you make me feel old. I'm 52, Evan.
Like, how do I say this? It was interesting though, because I didn't know that part of your story yet, that was literally the first thing for you. And I was saying how right now I still feel like people have no idea about the amino acid therapy and how much it can help. We're not saying it's perfect, but it is comparatively a heck of a low risk for high reward.
Pretty darn amazing. Mm-hmm.
Yes. Compared to the other options out there. So were you just having your mind blown when you were learning about all this stuff? Like, I always love to know the emotional experience of someone at that time, because you're having your paradigm shifted about what you probably thought was true about health and not. So what the heck were you thinking as you're uncovering all this stuff about yourself and realizing these things that you never knew were happening, such as celiac?
Right. So, I was really open when I went, because clearly nothing else. You can't talk I wasn't talking in a way. I was, I couldn't get into a program. So I'm like, well, whatever they have to say, I'm going to try it. And yeah, I was blown away. I'd never even heard of celiac disease. I never even heard of adrenal issues and like thyroid. I don't even know where my thyroid is. I was in nursing school. Of course, I knew where my thyroid was, but I just didn't understand any of this stuff. So my mind was completely broken. And when we left the clinic, and I remember going to the doc in San Francisco, and I just bawled and I bawled and I bawled because I was so overwhelmed. And it gave me so much hope. I'm like, I don't even know how to navigate life without my eating disorder. And you're telling me that it's going to go away. Like, I've been trying so hard for the last 11 years not to have this anymore. And you tell me when I use the amino acid therapy and I change my diet that I'm going to have relief. I'm going to live. I won't have seizures anymore. I'm not going to keep passing out. It blew my mind, Evan.
So again, for anyone out there listening, I always got to be smart with this because we haven't said it yet. Obviously, this is not medical advice for any individual listening. We're talking about Laurie's story today. This is what worked for her. We encourage you to go look into this stuff and hear what she has to offer, but don't go try this stuff just by yourself necessarily.
Right.
I am curious though. So how the heck do they approach that? Because I've heard of obviously people with anxiety, depression using amino acid therapy. That's pretty straightforward. But I'd imagine though, when someone has an eating disorder and then we're going to say, hey, it's one thing to take amino acids, fine. But to change the diet stuff around, like I would have no idea how to approach that. So how did you start integrating these dietary changes in your life while still trying to retain any level of healthiness that you had, or healthy relationship, I should say, with food? Because I'd be very worried about telling someone to change their diet all around when they already have this eating disorder. So how did that work?
Well, I actually became a fan of food. It shifted. My relationship with food became healthy.
Okay.
When all of this happened. Like it didn't make things weird. It didn't, send me into any spirals. It was just like, oh, this is the way that my body needs to eat. This is what's wrong. Like I have celiac, so I can't eat gluten anymore. And then you add the amino acids on top of it and it stopped the craving. So then I didn't want to eat the gluten. Right. And so it was just a perfect marriage. I think if I hadn't had the amino acids, I would have had a really hard time changing my diet. I see this all the time with my clients, but those amino acids stopped the cravings. So then I could make those changes. And then I'm like, oh, food is amazing. And I loved it. And I started loving to cook. And it just shifted my whole entire paradigm.
I pray that someone out there right now, just even live with this, I see about 25 of you on live, which is awesome. And then all the people, of course, that'll view and listen to this afterwards. But I genuinely pray that someone's out there dealing with this right now and is kind of already having themselves challenged in a healthy way, where they're like, how the heck could that be possible listening to this after what you've went through? So I'm going to stop teasing them here. And by the way, I see some comments come in. Once we're at about the 30-minute mark, if you guys have any questions or if you want to throw them in earlier, I'll happily get to them at that time. But for right now, we have to get to the elephant in the room. What the heck is amino acid therapy and why is this so great for a variety of mental health conditions?
Yeah. Well, we know amino acids are the building blocks of everything, right? And so amino acid therapy is taking targeted therapeutic doses of specific amino acids to target your neurotransmitters that affect your mood, craving cycles and stuff in your brain. So basically, you concentrate on 5 different areas with amino acid therapy for mental health issues. You're going to concentrate on serotonin, which would be like L-tryptophan, 5-HTP, GABA area. So serotonin, for those of you that know, give you that inner sunshine, right? So if you have enough serotonin, you're just happy. Like life is just good. And if you have enough GABA, you can take a deep breath and let it out. You don't feel as tense. Your shoulders aren't all the way up to your ears. Third category would be the catecholamines, which is basically your dopamine, your drive. You're not craving caffeine. You're not craving other addictive substances to focus. You just, life just is good. And then the fourth category would be your endorphins. So that I like to look at that as your inner joy. So you just feel yummy and good inside instead of looking for yummy, good food to eat. You're just like, I feel good about me. And then you balance all that with your glucose regulation, which is L-glutamine, the amino acid L-glutamine, which just kind of makes everything grounded. So I focus on those 5 areas, and that's what saved my life, to be honest.
So this is what's fascinating to me because I actually just did an event on Saturday. I was hosting this gentleman, Brendan Vermeyer, and we talked about a lot of there's 2 sides to this because he had a bunch of mental health issues himself. And he focuses on kind of the neuroinflammation side and
Mhm.
how that can lead to things. And it's not like he dismisses the whole serotonin or these neurotransmitters by any means. It's just that he focuses more on the neuroinflammation. And the results that I've seen from people doing things that would lower people's inflammation, but also the results I've seen from people who focus on this amino acid therapy, it makes me believe that there's so much yet to be discovered here and that there's two parts to this. I've actually, and maybe someone way smarter than me that's a PhD has gone out and already researched this, so forgive my ignorance, but I'm almost thinking like, is it that neuroinflammation even can disrupt the neurotransmitters? And that's why we have like this two
Yeah.
sides here where when we see people reduce inflammation, a lot of individuals with mental health issues get better. We have meta-analyses to back this up, that
Yep.
if someone with anxiety or depression takes an Advil, they might actually see temporary relief of symptoms or lowering of symptoms, which is nuts. It's been replicated many
Yes.
times. So that's an inflammation thing, unless Advil has a weird side effect of releasing dopamine and serotonin.
I
But then
don't think it
similar,
does. I think it's inflammation.
okay, yeah, right, right. But and then it's interesting though because you take these amino acids and it can really be helpful for someone. So for those that are listening right now, again, you need to figure this out for yourself. We're just trying to introduce a topic. Don't go start doing this by yourself. But how do you figure out what amino acids someone might need? Because I'm assuming just because someone has a mental health issue doesn't mean that they need all of them. So how do they kind of figure out which ones might be most beneficial to them?
So I like to do all this in real time, Evan. So I send all my clients a kit of amino acids. So I send you 9 different supplements. I have you fill out paperwork. It's very symptom based. So and then it's on a scale of 1 to 10. And then we go through all 5 of those categories. And then based on that information, I actually trialed the amino acids with you. So you'll take your little packet. We'll use serotonin, for example. So we'll start with tryptophan, and you take the tryptophan, open up the capsule, put the powder under your tongue. We stare at each other awkwardly for like 2 minutes. And then we're like, hey, how do you feel? Right. And so by the end of that appointment, the goal is that we'll figure out which amino acids we're going to start with you, and you'll know how your body responds to them right away. So it's really fun.
And
It's my
again, this
favorite
might
thing to do on earth.
Yeah, this might be a brand new thing to people. So I just want to know, because guys, I do know about this. I don't know as much as Laurie, but like I want to vouch for this here in case this is something that you're hearing for the first time. What she is talking about, where people are doing this in an office and the individual is literally walking out feeling better that day. That doesn't mean, I guess, perfect, but feeling better.
Yeah.
They've been doing this for decades. Now, I would imagine, I mean, I don't mean to get needlessly conspiracy theory here. I'm not even talking in that sense, but there's no profit behind the amino acids, because one thing we haven't mentioned yet is, Laurie, you don't need to necessarily get some special supplement that's only available in this foreign country from this special place. These amino acids are kind of widely available, and not to mention they're fairly affordable compared to other things.
They're very affordable. Yeah, very affordable. And I will go back to your inflammation. So the
Sure.
goal of amino acid therapy is to give your body what it's deficient in. And then you go to the root cause issue as to why that inflammation is there in the first place. So I marry the two together, like you were talking about, because we have to reduce the inflammation, because you don't want to be in those amino acids forever. I mean, you're going to get deficient depending on what's going on in your life, and you use them as tools. But the goal is there has to be a reason why your body became deficient in those to start with.
Sure. Okay, that's actually really cool, though, that you marry the two. So you believe that the I guess in your case, that the amino acids can be used for this temporary relief, get this person back on track, but we're just doing that really to get the actual deep work done that they might not be able to do in the state that they're currently in.
Exactly. When your brain is more balanced, then you can actually change your food. You can change the environment. You can make the changes that, we're going to ask people to make. Like I said, it saved my life. It stopped the craving cycle. If I hadn't done that, I mean, I had tried what seemed like an endless amount of tactics to not binge and purge, right? I had done everything my counselor would tell me, everything in the groups, you call the hotline, you do all this stuff. But until my brain stopped craving with the amino acids, that's when the cycle stopped.
What was that like for you in that moment when you realized it was working for the first time after over 11 years of suffering with it? Like, what was it like to feel that urge, if you will, go away?
I cried a lot because I'm like, I don't even want to. Like, I don't even want to binge and purge right now. I just want to eat good food and I feel good. Like I felt like I had a freedom back. I felt like I had a piece of me that I didn't even know existed, and that just grows over time. I felt like my maturity level was stuck. And then when all of a sudden your brain is balanced, you stop binging and purging, you actually get nutrition into your body. You're able to look at life and go, I don't have as much drama and trauma to work through as I thought I did, right? Because you can look at life in a whole different perspective.
That's very fun and controversial. I do agree with you, by the way, but let's please go there. So obviously there's a huge push right now about childhood trauma, all these kinds of things. And by the way, guys, I hope anyone that listens regularly, this is obvious. I'm not lessening things that happen to people, especially the more extreme stuff. Don't mistake what I'm saying here. But what did you mean by that? I want to go into that a little deeper. What did you mean by that when you said once this started to feel better with the amino acids and the other changes you were making that you didn't necessarily either, sorry, I don't want to misrepresent what you said, but either have as much trauma as you thought or maybe have as much work to do on that as you thought?
Yeah, definitely not as much work. So you could look at the situation and go, I'm not as angry, I'm not as bitter, I'm not as, you name the emotion behind it. Like it was so much easier to forgive, things that had happened, or to see that the people in a different light. Like I told you, my parents didn't know what they didn't know, right? And so you can't be angry about something that they didn't know about. Like when you look at that in a different light, and then I could see, the trauma that they went through, and to process that differently when your brain isn't in survival mode and stuck in overdrive all the time. So it's not discounting the things that happen. It's just looking at it from a whole different perspective. You just reframe all those things that, that go on in our life, and realize that I didn't have as much to talk about anymore, because I'm like, I can just let that go. I can forgive that person. That event is what it was, but it's, as I've worked, grown over the years, like that shaped me to who I was. And then to not grateful for events that happen, but grateful that for the outcome of maybe to the person that I am, if that makes sense. So you just look at it differently.
I was about to say, to me, it certainly does. I've always, I speak in schools on mental health actually. And one of the things that I don't even know if I'm doing a good job with this part, I admit, but one of the ways that I try to describe depression to people is everyone's heard the phrase of glass half full, glass half empty.
Yeah.
And the best way I've been able to describe depression, again, trying to describe this to a child who might not know what it is like depression's like seeing a full glass of water, but you think water doesn't matter. And it's just a completely skewed perception. And this idea that you could take something, in this case, something that is natural, found in foods, you could take this and your thoughts shift. It's a very hard concept for people to grasp, and I don't judge them at all. I don't think I'd grasp it unless I hadn't been through it. But you wonder, like, I mean, this is a bigger conversation. It's like, how many of on both sides, all sides, it's not a specific thing, but like world political leaders, celebrities, these people of influence, it's like they're still subject to the same things that we all are. It's like, can you imagine you give them a little amino acids and all of a sudden they're a little bit more forgiving and nice to each other?
Exactly. I'm always watching the news. My husband will laugh at me, and I'm like, ooh, that person needs some GABA. How about some tryptophan today, please? Like,
yeah, Laurie could be causing world peace here. So, all right, I'm guessing that this experience is the thing that this was probably the foundation for the passion and now what you do as a practitioner. So before we get into any questions, because I think there's going to be quite a few, guys, we're right at about the 30-minute mark. Drop anything that you have. I'd always rather hear from you than me. I'd love to know, what is it that you do now? How has this evolved over the years to make the Laurie that's here with us today?
Yeah, I mean, so I use amino acid therapy with almost every single client. That's the people that I attract, is people with anxiety, depression, eating disorders, OCD, other mental health issues, right? And then through all the other things that I've gone through in life and learned, then we go to, what's causing the inflammation. We detox the brain, very slowly, specifically, all those kind of things. So, what it looks like to work with me is to start with your 90 days working on your brain. Let's do the amino acids for 90 days. I require that commitment, because you have to work at least 90 days on any protocol that you're going to do. And then we go from there. We do some testing, and then we look at the root cause issues.
That's pretty cool. All right, let's see because I have to glance to the side right now with the new setup. Sorry, guys. Let me just see if you guys have comments or questions. Marissa had said, this is huge. Just before I took gluten-free eating for a spin, I engorged on wheat, such as pastas and cereals, and then was so uncomfortable I'd purge. I'm now diagnosed celiac. Mind blown. So glad that you had your mind blown. I'm glad that you figured this all out. Marianne said wheat is addictive, and Marissa had another comment here. I wish we could have had this discussion around amino acids before starting SSRIs.
1000%. I agree with you, Marissa.
And guys, listen, I never want to promote any negativity or pessimism on here, but you got to be realistic about certain things and understand how certain industries work. The bottom line with the amino acid therapy is I can't put a patent on that. I can't take that and just sell it to you as a medication. So the next best thing that I can do is create a medication that supposedly acts on these other neurotransmitters and hope for the best. And you guys can look at the studies on SSRIs and how well they perform against placebo. And then you can read the stories about people who have done stuff like this and come to your own decision with your own healthcare practitioner as to what might be best for you. All right, Zoe, this is such an incredible topic. This reminds me of Deborah Maragopoulos' work focusing on amino acids and the hypothalamus. I'm curious if Laurie has heard of this work or her Genesis Gold product. I remember interviewing her. Have you heard of Deborah?
I have heard of Deborah, and I have looked at her Genesis Gold. It's been so long, though, unfortunately. Yeah.
No worries. Okay, cool. Just a bunch of other. Oh, here's a question. Thank you, guys. Thank you for your great comments. So I always appreciate those as well. Michelle said, do you run labs before starting your program? So keep in mind, guys, Laurie's not an FDN, but you may run labs. I'm not sure. But do you use labs in your practice?
I do use labs. It's not the first thing I start with. I start with the amino acid testing first, and then I will run the labs after that.
This is Detective Ev talking to you guys here. I do the podcast for FDN. I would happily say this if Reed's on watching right now, and I know he'd back me on this. We're all about test, don't guess, Laurie. You heard this when you had
I am that way too. Yes.
But this is different to me. And guys, there's science behind this. If you want to know what someone's neurotransmitters are, if you actually want to know what the best test is, at least you can correct me if I'm wrong on this. From my understanding, it's a spinal tap. So that's not going to really work with most of our clients. Now, there are some interesting tests out there that supposedly look at, what may result from neurotransmitter inefficiencies or deficiencies, and stuff like that. Those are not as reliable as we'd like. We have access to those as FDNs. There's a reason that they're not taught as foundational labs. So I'd back fully what you're doing here in this case. And Laurie, can we educate our audience a little bit on that? Because we are so big on testing, don't guessing, that the idea of doing this first rather than testing first is foreign to them for most things. But I back you on this. So can we explain, why do you start with the amino acid therapy rather than just testing for these particular clients?
Well, because I want to balance their brain first, because I believe if we balance the brain first, if we balance those neurotransmitters, then the gut healing gets easier. Then the adrenal, insufficiency, those are easier to correct, because once you calm the nervous system with the amino acid therapy, then your job is going to get easier with everything else.
Marissa has a fair question here. I think you guys are going to be very surprised by this answer, but this is proven, again, outside of the spinal tap thing, which is not realistic for most people at all. How do you test for the amino acids then and know what they're supposed to use?
Yeah, so we're going to go back to, I send you the kit in the mail of the 9 amino acids. I send the forms I want you to fill out. So there's questionnaires, symptom-based, 1 to 10, 10 being the worst, 1 being the least. And then it assesses those 5 categories that I talked about earlier: serotonin, your endorphins, GABA, catecholamines, blood sugar regulation. And then we try the amino acids that I sent you in relation to those 5 areas.
And for our FDNs, again, I know this sounds foreign. I'm not saying this for other things, but this is actually true when it comes to this. These surveys that people can just fill out, it's very simple. To be honest, it's pretty straightforward. This has been shown to be one of the most accurate ways to test for this type of stuff. Now, is there more nuance in what we're actually testing for that is possible? Because, do we fully understand brain chemistry and know exactly everything that's going on? No, not even the most advanced scientists in the world fully understand that. But in terms of utilizing a survey to create an efficacious protocol using amino acids, that's pretty darn accurate. And let's just speak anecdotally here. And I'm not expecting it to be perfect, so who knows what the number is. Let's say you have 100 clients that you've worked with in this X period of time, Laurie. For those that utilize the amino acid therapy, how many out of those 100 do you think see at least some benefit with the amino acid therapy? Is it all of them or just some of them?
About 95%.
I mean, that's pretty darn good if you ask me.
Yeah. And you're talking about all the nuances and stuff. And there's a lot of nuances with the amino acids, to be honest with you. I mean, and that's why I teach practitioners. I mean, I have a whole course on amino acid therapy that I teach.
Oh no, you're tempting me. Dang, I'm going to get another course. I'm
You
going to
would
get another
love
course.
it. You would love it, Evan. It's so much fun. But there's so many nuances, and everything that you teach with FDN is just it's a beautiful marriage for all of those you out there thinking about it like, oh, I need to learn this. I can help you with that for sure.
Is there any, or are there any patterns that you've seen in maybe that 5 out of 100, 5% roughly, that don't respond? Is it that they normally have had more severe traumas or anything? Like, I'm kind of curious if you noticed any patterns, or maybe there's not.
Yeah, usually it's a medication issue. The medications are just masking everything and they just can't feel it, to be honest. And the other things would be, sometimes people just don't respond. So you always have that
Sure.
sect of people who are like, I don't know, maybe it's your liver, maybe it's too much toxicity, too much inflammation. I don't know. But most of the time it's a medication that's masking the response.
Which obviously, of course, we can't tell them to get off that. I know you're not saying that either, but like, that's kind of fascinating that in theory, if they had a doctor that was like supporting this and would maybe temporarily work with them on that could mean it's even higher than 95%. So here's something I'm curious about, because of course, one of the things that happens when we're speaking about mental health that is a little bit different than certain things like an autoimmune condition, even though if you actually look at the statistics, it's really not. But nonetheless, people will say, okay, well, you have, and I've actually kind of grouped this when I'm speaking to kids to make this make a little more sense. I'll kind of group things into what I call circumstantial mental health issues, and then what I call non-circumstantial mental health issues. Now, do I believe that most people that have mental health issues actually have both of these? Probably. But what I mean by circumstantial is a very clear trauma or set of traumas occurred that led to the manifestation of the mental health issues, right? So that doesn't mean that you don't have things inflaming your body, but
Yep.
so they're like, hey, I won't get into anything today. It's a Monday. I can't get into stuff. But they dealt with something serious as a kid, and then right afterwards, they started having panic attacks. Okay, well, that's probably circumstantial mental health. Then you get people like me. I had a pretty decent life growing up. I had actually a really great life, but I had panic attacks, depression, substance abuse, all this stuff. So I had what I call more of a non-circumstantial mental health issue. Now, what's interesting is I'm wondering, are you finding that those amino acid therapies, at least for that initial relief, can that help people equally if they're more circumstantial or non-circumstantial heavy, or is it just more helpful for the non-circumstantial people?
No, it's definitely circumstantial as well, because we know that trauma depletes our nutrition, right? So it depletes our minerals, but guess what? It also depletes our amino acids. So your body's going to burn through more things when you're in a traumatic event. So we can help to boost that, to replace those, to fix those deficiencies. And then that helps in all those circumstances.
This is funny. So you might not know this test. By the way, 40 of you on. So thanks for being here today. I'm glad that you guys like this topic. We have an awesome guest here for it. Marissa said it reminds me of the metabolic typing thing, something we teach at FDN. Yeah, and Marissa, you're absolutely right. It sounds almost too good to be true or woo-woo when you first start, and then you see what happens to the clients, and you're like, wow. And if I'm being dead honest, I would actually say amino acid therapy, the surveys there have more history than metabolic typing, and I love metabolic typing. So. Zoe said she'd love to hear more about the course. We'll definitely do that in a second. Maybe we can even do it off this question. So Michelle said, so as an FDN, is there a way to get into amino acid testing, or how can we learn this? Michelle, genuinely, even though we have access to certain lab tests at FDN, I would still fully promote the way that Laurie does this first. That I don't even know if there is a time to use those particular tests, and we can get into that afterwards. But for your course, Laurie, it's a little earlier than I normally ask this, but they clearly are interested. So one, where can they find that? And then two, for someone who's already an FDN, they have advanced lab training, good nutrition training. What could an FDN get from this course?
Right. You're going to get a lot from this course. You're going to learn how to use amino acid therapy. So, which is, not something I know you guys cover. So, it marries well with what you're doing. Is going to make all of your other lab testing and everything else you do better. And so the course just goes through learning about what amino acids are, what those 5 areas are. We meet every Monday night to go over case studies, to do additional training on everything, to dive deep into all of those nuances, because nobody tests the same. Nobody needs the exact same amount. There's not a cookie cutter to amino acid therapy. I kind of wish there was, but there isn't. Some people need a tiny little like pixie dust in a large glass of water. So you need to know when to do that and when not to do that. And some people need like 2,000 milligrams of GABA at a time, 4 times a day. It really depends on the person. And that's where learning how to do the trialing and then how to navigate the dosing after that is really key and everything. And then I teach diet, and lifestyle things, which you already know in FDN, but it's all the nuances and everything. So, and you get to work on your own mental health because you have to do this along the way. You can't go through the program and not use your own amino acids.
Yeah. And even with the diet stuff, like you said, we already know it as FDNs, and that's probably true. I think we could do an amazing job for people, but it goes back to your original point. This is something this is one of the only times I get myself in trouble here, not from the staff, but like from the audience. Sometimes they do not like when I say this, but this is as someone who dealt with mental health issues himself. I have zero judgment and only a slight problem for those that are utilizing some type of medication to get themselves afloat. Guys, right. When I was dealing with depression, I am useless in terms of being able to apply new habits or things to my life. So you can give me the best lab tests, the best protocol, the best diet. I can't do it when I'm in that state. So listen, if they get amino acid therapy first, yes, I'd have a preference for that. But if they even utilize a medication that gets them above water, right? It's a life jacket for right now. Cool. Then we can pull them to shore. I can't pull you to shore if you're below the water. That's not going to work. So I just hope we have a more open mind to that kind of stuff. Melissa asked a great question here. Will you have accurate results from the amino acid test if the person's on SSRIs?
Yes. So the only challenge with amino acids and SSRIs is, of course, addressing the serotonin. So that's the elephant in the room. So you can use all the other amino acids, and we just have to, teach you how to use them around whatever medication SSRI they're on. Can I say a thing about SSRIs?
Oh, please.
Okay. So this is just a history tidbit for all of you out there wondering, like, how did this happen? Like, why haven't we always been using amino acids? And the thing is that in the psychiatric community, tryptophan was utilized and they got good results with that before Prozac came out. So you're like, what happened? So this was in like 1989, a bad batch knowingly was sent to the United States from Japan of tryptophan. So it was a contaminated batch. It wasn't the tryptophan issue, it was the contamination of it. And it killed 40 people. Okay. Yeah. So in the court case, it all came out that they knew that this was contaminated. Okay, so prior to that, Prozac was launched and nobody wanted it because they had tryptophan, they had other things they were using in the psychiatric community. Nobody wanted Prozac. It flopped. Then the contaminated batch came over, killed 40 people. Tryptophan was pulled from the market. Prozac was re-released. Okay, I'm just telling you the history of it, right? Just telling you the history of it. And then, subsequent medications have followed, since then. And later tryptophan was re-released when in 1995, 1996, when I was doing this therapy for the first time, I had to buy tryptophan in the pet section at the health food store because it wasn't available and it was barely available in a compounding pharmacy, right? And it was super expensive. So I just took pet tryptophan until it came back, to be available. And then 5-HTP came out, but it tainted amino acid therapy at that point. And I still have people today, they'll question me, is it really safe? Is this going to, I found this happened, back in, 1989. I'm like, that was the contamination of it. That wasn't the tryptophan. And it's clearly readily available now, but that's just some history for you of SSRIs and kind of how they exploded back in the 90s.
Thank you for adding that in because I like to know accurate history of stuff. So I'm excited to check that out. Well, excited might not be the right word. I'm intrigued enough to check that out because, again, that's why I was hesitating with the word earlier because I know you say the frickin' word conspiracy theorist now, people assume certain things. It's like, guys, some of the truth out there is stranger than any conspiracy you can come up with. Like, I'm sorry to tell you this. There is a very small but meaningful subsection of people that do not care about you and me, that are interested in power and money only, and will do what is necessary to obtain more of that. And sometimes that is at the consequence of a lot of people. And I think so many individuals, especially those in our space, Laurie, right? We're healers, we're givers.
Yeah.
They are such good individuals that they can't even comprehend that some individuals out there might be like that, but
Yeah.
that's what we're working with. I don't know
Yeah.
what we need to give the psychopaths of the world. I don't know if they respond to amino acid therapy, but if we could
I
give
don't
them
know.
some,
Yeah.
that'd be great. We just haven't figured that out yet. So I didn't know the thing about the tryptophan shipment from Japan that did that. And then it's like, even if that was some weird, I know it's not, I'm saying that even if
Yeah.
it was
But even
some
if it
weird
was,
one-off thing with tryptophan, could you imagine if those people that are looking that up and saying that to you actually looked up the side effects of the SSRIs?
right. Exactly. Exactly. And if you want to read a good book on kind of that whole synopsis, it's called Talking Back to Prozac. It's a really old book, but I think you can still find it on Amazon. So all of
Okay, I'll put that in
those of
the.
you want to dive into that, Talking Back to Prozac.
Thanks. That'll be on my reading list. All
Yeah.
right. Amber, I'm not ignoring you, but I think we basically answered your question because she also talked about how to do the amino acid therapy when the person's on medication. So you said SSRIs, we're going to have to work around that. What about like a benzodiazepine? I'm thinking about like a Xanax and GABA. Is that contraindicated or can they work
Nope.
together?
No, we can use it.
Wow.
Yeah.
Very cool. Okay. Here we go. Jennifer is on LinkedIn. Welcome from our LinkedIn viewer. That's always cool.
Nice.
Once people equilibrate their level, can they go off amino acid therapy or are they on these long term? Great question.
That is a great question. So usually people just start forgetting to take their amino acids because they don't need them. So they're not like, oh, I need to take this because I feel bad. And then all of a sudden you don't need them anymore. And then you just use them as tools. Like I said, I've been doing this since 1995. If I have a stressful event, like my mom died, I did some amino acid therapy for a while because it just helped me through the grieving process and I was depleted from helping to take care of her. So you just learn how to use them as tools. And I teach my clients that.
It sounds perfect, right? It's a terrible situation that you dealt with, but you use something that's not going to have the side effects. That's not going to numb you, right? Because a lot of people are given these medications, which I fully understand if you're dealing with some terrible event like that, but you still have to live in a normal world and show up at work and all that stuff. But it comes at the side effects of you're numb and no one wants to feel that way.
Yeah.
All right. You guys are awesome today. I'm so glad that you're loving this topic. You
Great
are making me
question.
think we're going to have to do something more with Laurie. So Laurie, stick with me at the end here because I'll talk about something after. All right. Zoe said, what are some next steps to learning more about this prior to the full jump into your course? Are there any other things that they could do?
Yeah, I would until I write my book. And I think Julia Ross is amazing. So I would get her book. Oh my gosh, The Mood Cure is what I'm trying to say. I would buy her book, The Mood Cure, and read it.
Yeah, you guys can't miss that on Amazon or if it's in any bookstores near you. It's a distinct yellow covered book. So I just dropped that in the chat. Jennifer said she's an FDN too, which is great. I cannot believe that we're at 47 minutes already. It's not going to, we'll probably go over just by a few minutes because I want to talk about some things that I usually finish up the show with. So guys, if you have more questions, we're not going to be able to get to all those today. We'll talk about where you can follow Laurie. I'm sure you could ask stuff there. And then I already have an idea of where to bring her next for FDN. So we'll talk about that privately afterwards. For now, one of the first things I'd like to do to kind of wrap us up here is I always love to hear about client testimonials. And so what I mean by that is it's amazing to hear these stories from practitioners who hop on. But I think sometimes if some random person's listening that doesn't even know what an FDN or FNTP is, they're probably like, okay, well, this can't happen to me. These people live this every day. Well, that's not the case. So to the degree that you're able to share, what is like one of the most profound or cool stories of someone coming into your office, virtually or physically, maybe at the end of their rope, not feeling great, and you were finally the person that was able to help them with this methodology?
Yeah. So I'll use a recent client. She's on 5 medications, literally 5 different mood medications. She had been on and off medications since she was 12. And she came to me because she's like, I want to get off these meds. She was anxious. She was depressed. She wasn't sleeping. Her diet was awful. She wasn't exercising. So the whole gamut, right? And so we did the amino acid therapy and we had to work around some of those medications because she is on 5 of them. She was also working with her psychiatrist to wean herself off of them, right? And so she did. And we are 10 months out. And so she's off all of those medications. She has radically changed.
Laurie, I'm sorry to cut you off. I think I lost you here on audio, though. Tracy, can you let me know, please, very quick in the chat because it's delayed for everyone else. Okay, it is your audio right now. Can we just switch that around real quick, see what happened?
Okay. I don't know how I got muted. That was weird.
All good. You're good. So we didn't hear most of the answer, though, unfortunately. I heard after 10 months, She was off all
After 10 months. Great. After 10 months. Okay, now you can hear. She's off all 5 of her meds. So she worked with her psychiatrist, cut herself down, off of all of those. She looks phenomenal. Like, she looks like a whole different person. She's sleeping through the night. We did adrenal testing. So we did a Dutch test. We did comprehensive lab work with her. So we figured out some root cause issues, and she's been addressing those. But the beautiful thing is she loves life now. Like, she feels good. She's off all 5 meds. She's been to visit her family, which was very traumatic for her, off of all of her meds. And she's like, it was decent. I actually could navigate all the craziness that was going on with my family, and I feel really good about it. She's lifting weights. She just ran a marathon or half marathon. Like, she's just had a phenomenal recovery from all of this. And like I said, she's been on meds since she was 12. And it's been interesting to watch her feel like normal feelings. And she's like, I'm not complaining about this. She goes, but I feel angry today, but I feel like it's a good thing that I feel angry because I've been so numb my entire life. And she's 35, right? So from 12 to 35, and not to know what it really feels like to genuinely cry over something that's worth crying over, to be angry about something that's worth being angry about, and to feel the joy. Like, she goes, I've never really felt this like deep, like internal joy before. It's huge.
That's so amazing. Paula had said, I need the replay, missed the first half. So Paula, and for anyone else that doesn't know, one of the great things about our podcast is we do all of this live. So literally where you're watching this is instantly available to you as soon as we're done here. It's always under the YouTube live tab. People get confused and they're like, well, wait, it's not under YouTube videos. That's because we streamed it live. So it's under that live tab. You can watch this immediately after we're done. So I know we're a minute or two over. I have to throw this in because there's a gentleman that's an FDN, Laurie. His name's Dr. Josh Friedman, and he's doctor of psychology. I interviewed him like 2 years ago. It was the only other time we had amino acid therapy on. And he had a very, very dramatic story of a guy came into his office, and he didn't do this in a threatening way. It was dramatic. The guy literally put a firearm on the table and said to him, you're my last stop. Like, I can't live like this anymore. I can't do this anymore. And there's a lot of nuance here, right? That's not obviously something that would be in the scope of a normal FDN. He's a doctor of psychology, which maybe he needs even more help than that. But obviously, for the sake of the story, I'll leave it at that. And within literally a month, Dr. Josh Friedman, through the amino acid therapy and the other stuff, was able to get this guy back on track. I interviewed him years after that happened, and that guy had a good, normal, stable life and a family at that point. So, guys, there's people out there that are suffering, and they just need some help. And so at the very least, I never really ask this for our show. I'm not someone that's always like, oh, like and subscribe. I don't do that kind of stuff. Please, if you could today, maybe take the time to share this podcast on your social media platforms, and just put in the caption or something. If you are a loved one struggling with mental health, check this out, because they're not going to tell you, right? They're most likely not going to tell you, but they are watching. People are always watching on social. They might click this privately, end up buying Julia's book, end up working with Laurie, who the heck knows? And you might never even know that happened, but you helped that person in a serious way. I'm going to, forgive me, I'm going to do one more audience question here just because it's too important, and I'm biased to it. And I want people to know because I suffered as a kid. So someone asked, what about children? Like, does this actually work for children? Can they do amino acids?
It does work for children. Yeah, it does work for children. It depends on your child, what their age is, but we have to have a lot more parental involvement. But yes, I can navigate that well with you.
Cool. All right, we will shout out right now where you can find Laurie. I just have to say before we do that, I want to see this chat. I'm going to put the chat overlay up. I want to see some thank yous in this chat, please. I already have some people saying amazing podcast and all that kind of stuff. So please drop some thank yous for Laurie if you like this today. And if I see a bunch of thank yous, then I have something else that we can do with her, because I'll be able to show Reed, hey, people loved this. This is what else we have to do. Laurie, where can people find you if they'd like to work with you and or get your course?
Awesome. So find me on Instagram is going to be the best place. Send me a DM, the Calm Mom Community, or you go to my website. But the Calm Mom Community is where I am the most, and I would love to chat with each of you, and I'll send you the link to the course.
Okay, let's please leave the Instagram up just for the remainder of the podcast, Tracy. I want to finish up with our signature question on the show. This is how we always finish out here. And Laurie, this could be about mental health. It could be about health in general. Obviously, you're a practitioner yourself, so you can answer this in any way you feel fit to. The signature question on the show is, if we could give you a magic wand, you could wave it and you can get all of our viewers and listeners to do just one thing for their health, whether that is starting a new habit or you can get us to all stop doing one thing. What is the one thing that Laurie gets us to do?
Oh, I would pick sleep. I would tell you to go to bed at the same time every night. Please go between like 9 and 10 p.m. and, set your nighttime alarm instead of your morning alarm. Go to bed and get some sleep.
Awesome. Laurie, I think you could see all the thank yous coming through, so I hope that you know that they clearly liked this. And I promised you people actually show up live, so you guys are really helping me out now, so our guests know they can't see the numbers, so at least they know people are here. If you are not an FDN trainee or graduate and you would like to go through a case study with us next week on Hashimoto's and celiac, it starts September 15th. Please go to fdntraining.com/5labs. Again, if you're a trainee or grad, do not pay for this. This is stuff that you learn in the FDN course. If you're not a trainee or graduate, but you're interested in FDN, it's a steal because you get to learn some of the stuff that we teach in the course for a fraction of the price. So fdntraining.com/5labs, and make sure to go check Laurie out on our Instagram. I have a very strong feeling we'll be having her back soon in the future. So you guys have a great day, and it's been really fun talking to you.